Laenui, and welcome to Voices of Truth One-on-One with Hawaii's Future, brought to you by the Kiwani Foundation. I'm Ahu Keikahu Cardwell, and here we are today out in Waianae on the island of Oahu. And I'll tell you this right now, we have an awesome guest on the show, so come on over here with me and let's meet him. Poka.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Welcome to Maili.
Maikai. Poka Laenui. Did I say your name right?
Yep.
Wonderful. And we're at
Maili
Beach.
Yeah, beach. Yep.
Wow, this is beautiful out here on the west side, the dry side of Oahu.
It's God's secret. What else can I say? Let's not advertise it.
We won't
much.
tell anybody. How's that? Good.
Okay.
Well, Poka, the reason we wanted to have you on the show today was because we wanted to talk about something called the Hawaii Transitional Authority. Yes?
Okay.
And
Hawaii National Transitional Authority. We've given it a name, but actually it's an idea that has been bubbling up for a time. And it's a recognition of a number of things. One is what we have been caught in. You know, I've been involved in the Hawaiian sovereignty movement since the 1970s. 1970, 1971, when I refused to salute the American flag. I was court-martialed while I was in the Air Force, and I had begun working on this concept, or not on the concept, on the belief that Hawaii has no business being under the United States. We should be an independent nation. So I went to law school. I got out of law school. I brought cases before the court. We asked, who are you foreigners who come into Hawaii and charge us by your foreign laws? We are not U.S. citizens, we are Hawaiians. And so that was an introduction of the issue of Hawaiian sovereignty, the illegality of the overthrow. We questioned the very jurisdiction of the court, the very jurisdiction of the system that has taken over Hawaii. So it raised the issue of Hawaiian sovereignty, the issue of Hawaiian self-determination. And from that, what we had was then the beginning of a division around a united historical background and around a united principle that all peoples have the right to self-determination. What we did was we used the court system as the venue, as the education platform. To one extent, we were arguing the case to the court, but to a greater extent, we were arguing the case to the media who paid attention to the defendant as a criminal defendant, but now saw a different side of the issue and saw a new issue which they had not seen before, the issue of Hawaiian self-determination.
so that was all new information at that time.
Yeah. Then we represented Makua eviction, a lot of homeless, the Sand Island eviction. And so we took within the judicial system this question of Hawaiian sovereignty, but used it merely as a method of educating the public, which media was now slowly picking up. And then colleges, universities, high schools started inviting me and others to talk about this historical issues that we brought up. It's the idea of using whatever avenues we have, whether it's a court system or the school system or an economic system, whatever it is, to start talking about these issues. So you had the growth in the greater Hawaiian movement of a very important aspect, and that was the Hawaiian sovereignty movement. Previous to that, you had a lot of the cultural rejuvenation, the fight about the protection of Kaho'olawe, the militarization of Hawaii, the changes in Hawaii, what was happening in Kahana Valley, and how Bishop Estate itself was throwing out pig farmers. So you had a lot of those issues, but now the Hawaiian sovereignty question comes into play, and so it starts drawing attention to the very question of where is your jurisdiction to come in here and pass laws over us. So we went through that process, and then what unfortunately started to happen is that within the Hawaiian sovereignty movement, we started seeing now the division of two separate points of view. One was Hawaiian sovereignty, immediate sovereignty. Get out of here, you don't belong here, you have no jurisdiction over us, we should be an independent nation. and yet there's no nation or there's no state to capture the nation and exercise the Hawaiian sovereignty. You see, and a lot of people don't fully appreciate this, you have a nation and you have a state. The nation is a commonality of the sacred times, the sacred places, the culture, the place that the people revolve around, the consciousness of the people. The state is the government. The state is the government in which it can exercise, it can put into effectiveness the will of the nation. Normally, the state will express the will of the nation. You need to have that clarity of what is a nation, what is a state.
Right. So a lot of people didn't realize that distinction at the time, right?
And they still don't.
Okay.
And that's why you need this conversation, you need a continuing discussion to bring about this clarity of mind. The other problem is that when some people are saying immediate independence, other people are saying, you fool, how can we be independent? Where is a state? We haven't even gotten together to agree how we're going to form the state. We don't have a national constitution. People are arguing about whether or not it should be the constitution of 1839 or 1840 or 74 or whatever it is. And they start picking numbers as this being the constitution. We haven't really had a discussion about what is a constitution. In the minds of a lot of people, a constitution is a palapala, a paper document, something that sets in writing what are the foundational aspects of a government. And yet, if I was to come up to you and I say, brother, pehako piko, what is your constitution? How are you? How are you formulated? What is your belief system? All of those things. I'm not asking you for your birth certificate. I'm not asking you for a passport or anything like that. I'm asking you, what is the essence that makes you who you are? What is your belief system? What is your culture? What is your deep culture? And yet we have confused ourselves into believing that a constitution is a document that came out of our history. And so that's another issue that we need to start paying deeper attention to. So the question is, you have the constitutions of different years. People ask me, what constitution do you go by? I said, there's only one constitution. The rest are all amendments. And then they say, well, what do you mean only one constitution? It's a constitution as stated by Aiea Kamehameha. And with the clarity of on his deathbed, when one of his ali'i asked him, "Oh my king, is there any words you leave back for us?" And what he says is, "E nai wali no o kou, I ku'u pono a ole pau." Pono. The pono that I have fought for is not ended yet. It is pono. One single word. That is the Constitution. What does it mean? It means do appropriate, do right in whatever you do. And that is the essence of ka'ea. Ka'ea is not necessarily sovereignty, although that oftentimes we refer it to sovereignty because it's the closest we can get when we're talking about a government form. Ka'ea, ea, is a processing, ea. A is a life force itself, or is a processing of life for the aina, and that must be contained in pono. Wa mau ka'ea o ka'aina i ka pono. That is the Constitution. We can come up with documents here, documents there, but it has to be appropriate. Today the question is it appropriate to have kings and queens? Is it appropriate to have an elitist group that governs Hawaii? Or is it appropriate that we move from elitism to egalitarianism? To the elites and then moving it to the equality of all mankind. And I would suggest that the movement during the Kamehamehas and then you have the elections and then you end up with Liliuokalani, there was a gradual movement over to a more democratic system.
Yes.
Can we say that we time lock? that movement and say it stops at Liliuokalani. And so from that time, before that, we look back and we choose within that history? Or are we saying that we ourselves have the continuing right to use our own circumstance, our own beliefs, our own sense of what is appropriate government, and create our own? Some people make a strong argument that, well, let's not ignore our history, let's not avoid our history. And I agree, you cannot avoid our history. But history should be seen not as an anchor to pull us back into the past, but it serves as that springboard to jump us into the future. It gives us the freedom, not the anchor. It gives us the freedom to move into the future with a strong foundation. And so I'm asking, what do we create? Recognizing the events that we went through, what do we create as the Hawaii for now and into the future? So that's part of the transitional authority. We need to understand our history, but that doesn't mean that we need to lock ourselves in that history. And so we should be free to decide. It's not saying we shouldn't go back into that history, but it doesn't lock us into that history. A lot of people are interpreting Hawaiian sovereignty as a replication of where we had been and where we need to start up from behind. And they say, oh, we need to start with a written constitution already there, so we know what the rights are, but under a Hawaiian concept. Well, that may be the case. But let's remember that the Constitution says women cannot vote.
Yeah.
And so what do we do with that? Oh, we can change that one. Yeah, you can change that. You can change a lot of things. So what you're really saying is that we are free to change.
Yeah.
So let's not lock ourselves. Do we need kings and queens? Well, we had them, but do we need them? And that should be part of the debate. But don't lock us into a conclusion before we engage in that debate. So that's part of the discussion. The other discussion is, well, when all this going to happen? Some people say, I tied weight already. Hey, we all tied weight. But that is part of the problem. We all have a plan that we're going to move ahead with my plan. So you say, well, who the hell are you? How come your plan?
Why your plan instead of my plan?
Yeah.
Or his plan.
That's
or
right.
her plan.
It's not fair for a group to get together and just say, we are the ones. We capture the Hawaiian nation and we claiming it for ourselves. And we will tell you folks, you can come along with us or not, but we have our king, we have our queen, we have all of these positions and all that stuff. What happened to the idea of egalitarianism, of equality, of participation? And that was the big goal that we tried to form in, when was that, 1996, 1997, 1998. In the state itself, and they had a side interest, but the state itself says, what we're going to do with the issue of Hawaiian sovereignty? So they created commissions, they created councils, they had the Sovereignty Advisory Commission, the Hawaiian Sovereignty Advisory Council, the Hawaiian Sovereignty Elections Council. And generally what people were saying as we went to every community here, whether in Waianae or all the different islands, we even went up to America to talk with Hawaiian communities. And what they said essentially was, we're sick and tired of people claiming that they represent the Hawaiian nation. Why don't we all get together? We vote for our representatives. You folks sit in a group, in a council, in a convention, deliberate, and then come out and propose to us what you think is right. And so we had an election. First, before the election, we had a plebiscite to ask the question, is this the way you want to go? Is this what you want? We put it out to the people, as many as we could identify as appropriate Hawaiians, and even then we got some problems, what is appropriate Hawaiian? But it was limited to race. We put out the question, and about 78% came back, about 30,000 I think it was, said yes, let's move in this process. Mass of the Hawaiian population.
So the whole spectrum.
Yeah, the spectrum was represented.
Yeah.
We disagreed with one another. We couldn't come to a common mind. We talk. And over a period of time, we started seeing each other's perspective. And so we followed a more gentle approach of discussion, of respectfulness, of considering that I have a particular experience, particular point of view, particular education, but you have your own. And after this, what we finally came down to is this. It's not for us to decide the future of Hawaiian sovereignty and present to the people only one choice. Let's present to them essentially the two major choices and have them decide. One was for absolute independence. The other one was for a nation within a nation, staying part of the United States, integrated within the United States.
Federal recognition, yeah?
Federal recognition. Interestingly, somebody said, hey, let's take a straw vote. I don't like straw votes, but they insisted, so I lost the fight.
You'd end up with a short straw.
But not actually. When we took the straw vote, the majority favored independence, but we had already committed, we're going to come out with two proposals. The independence proposal was more finely developed. And in the independence proposal, we address a very important issue. Who are the we? Who is the self in self-determination? The Americans have been driving us, the state of Hawaii driving us into a racial definition. Even when we were elected, it's only the native Hawaiians who can vote, and they define us tracing our ancestry. But what we said was, if we're going to create a nation, following from the historical evidence that we already have, how can we now change that historical evidence and say that the Howleys, the Japanese, the Portuguese, the Filipinos, the Chinese, everybody else is excluded? No, they were all citizens of the Hawaiian nation. They had the opportunity to switch their allegiance, or if they had been born in Hawaii, they were citizens. They were nationals of Hawaii. So it was not us to separate and play the divisive game.
So how did you solve that, Poka?
Well, we said everybody can be a citizen of the Hawaiian nation. We created a basket of eligibles. It doesn't say that you need to be a Hawaiian citizen. It says it's up to you. You qualify, you can choose, be a Hawaiian citizen. Even a full-blooded native Hawaiian who say, no, I don't like. That's okay. You're not a Hawaiian citizen. That doesn't mean we're going to kick you out of Hawaii. That will come about in terms of the laws that we make. Then somebody asks the other question. Wait. You mean that everybody the same, but what about the native Hawaiians? What about the Poe Hawaii? Those who have the koko? They get nothing? They're just like everybody else? They do have a special right as indigenous people. They have a right over certain aspects, the right to create their own social system, to be able to control certain specified lands which we can demarcate and say, okay, this is only for the native Hawaiians. They have certain voice in the government. For example, as a host culture, as a host people, they should have the right to decide on the population of the islands. Not only the population, but it includes who can transmigrate into Hawaii from now on. So we cut aside certain very specific rights for only the native Hawaiians. But all the other question about public schools, international trade, and all these other issues are for all of us. So we recognize this idea of indigenous people's rights, and we also recognize human rights and fundamental freedoms of everyone. Those who are concerned about Hawaiian issues, Hawaiian sovereignty, we agree 99% that we have a right to self-determination. You know, it's a historical right, it's a human right, it's an international right. Why do we separate ourselves around that 1% where we disagree? He like be king, the other one wants to be queen, the other one wants to be whatever, we don't know what they're doing. Why separate ourselves? In the meantime, we're only addressing one aspect of Hawaiian sovereignty, the building of the structure of the government, how you head the government, how you elect your representatives. But in the meantime, a nation is far more than its leadership, its constitutional structure. A nation is How are the people? How do they relate to one another? Are they healthy? Are they in poverty? Are they mean to one another? Do they love? Is there love in our community? Is there love in our society? The soul of a nation is far more than just the political structure. The soul of a nation is what is a deep culture of the nation? How do they operate with one another? What is the economic system? Is it sharing and caring, or is this strong capitalist approach? You don't want enough money? Get out of my store. But my kids, they need milk. Well, too bad. Get out of my store. This is a capitalist system. The softer system is, it changes. It's come. We'll go help you. Yeah. These are what forms a nation. These are what forms the deeper structure. It's what I call the difference between, on one side of the deep culture, you have it led by three fundamental pillars. The pillar of domination, individualism, and exclusion. And that's how they operate our education system, our economic system, our environmental system, our legal system. All based on DIE, domination, individualism, and exclusion. And yet when we go into our communities, when we go home, when we go and associate with our neighbors, instead of domination, it's olu olu. It's a more softer, kinder relationship. We still can disagree. There's no problem with that. But we're not going to hate each other, and we can agree on many more things that we disagree with. So it's always olu olu. Instead of individualism, it's lokahi. You know, you're thinking of the group, you're thinking of the society, the wealth of everyone, not only of yourself. It's not me first and everyone can go to hell. It's not America first and everyone, no. We have to think of the whole, okay? So it's lokahi. Instead of exclusion, it's the idea of aloha.
Inclusion.
Inclusion, but more than that. Inclusion and aloha with the sake of including with a sense of caring, sharing, recognizing the humanity, even of the stranger, even of the people that we may not like or associate with. On one hand, you have this idea of DIE, domination, individualism, and exclusion. On the other hand, you have olu olu, lokahi, and aloha. On one hand, you have dai, and on the other hand, you have ola. Life or health.
Yeah.
So the question is, what do we ingrain our culture with? What do we ingrain our deep culture? What do we ingrain this nation that we talk about? We don't have to agree or disagree on the form of the structure of what the Constitution is, but what is the essence of Hawaii? Mm-hmm. And that's where we need to transition our thoughts into, to start addressing these other questions. What is happening to Hawaii today? Let's call people together and leave our disagreements aside. We can still come together and try to resolve certain issues.
Is this why you created the Hawaii National Transitional Authority?
That's the principal reason. We got to pull together, we got to unite.
So the purpose of this organization was to start to have these conversations to bring people together, yes?
Yeah, a deeper conversation, not only to bring people together, but to take action of the things that needs to be addressed immediately. One, for example, is the fact that we are having Hawaii's residences be used as an investment toy, as a capitalist toy. It's our people, the locals, who cannot afford a house, they oftentimes cannot afford to even rent. So what is the result? You see it on the beaches, you see it in the mountains, you see it under the bridges, the homelessness. Not only that, you see it in the flight off to America, whether it's Las Vegas or Washington State or other places. And so we need to address that. Why not say we are limiting the investment? If you are not going to live in this house or in this home, which is a residence, you're not allowed to buy. 50% of the investors who purchased new constructions on Kauai are foreigners, are from out of Hawaii. Even here in Hawaii itself, you have people who are investing, living in Hawaii, investing and buying up all of this property and hoarding the property while our people cannot afford.
Yeah.
So you're creating the distance between the rich and the poor, and it's not getting closer. That's an issue that belongs to the question of Hawaii's future.
Yeah.
We need to address it now.
Yeah.
So that's one of the issues.
That's great. And Poka, that's where we got to leave it. Mahalo for being on Voices of Truth today. Please keep doing what you're doing. Please keep working to bring people together to have these conversations, because these are the fundamental conversations that we need to have, yeah?
Yeah,
Wonderful.
I think so.
Wonderful.
Let me say, everybody invited to engage in a conversation, even not having to come to our meeting. Any place, create the conversation. Let's address it from these points of view.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Wonderful. And mahalo to our viewers for joining Poka and me here today to talk about this. Remember, you can watch us on the web 24/7 on voicesoftruth.tv.com, and you can like Voices of Truth One-on-One with Hawaii's Future on Facebook. I'm Mehu Keikahu Cardwell for the Kiwani Foundation, along with Poka here. And until next time, ahui ho! Mahalo for watching Voices of Truth One-on-One with Hawaii's Future. Watch us on the web 24/7 at voicesoftruth.tv.com. You'll find all our shows, including this one, in case you want to see it again or share it with family and friends. Also view our weekly video commentaries at freehawaiitv.com. And check out our blog, published daily, at freehawaii.info. It's all part of the Free Hawaii Broadcasting Network.